a number of people who are wondering, can we really do this? Can we do what Bob's talking about? Or what Mikey's talking about, or Tommy's talking about? I mean, is it really possible to multiply your income, to start the business that you're dreaming about? Well, the answer is absolutely. I was talking to Sandy Gallagher, my business partner, about this, and she said she thought it was a shame that there were so many people with phenomenal potential that put themselves in a position where they couldn't move ahead without somebody else's permission, and their income is stuck where it is and they couldn't change it. You see, Sandy Gallagher, my business partner, and myself, we're both true entrepreneurs. We believe in being in charge of our own future, being in charge of our own income. We want to decide what we want to earn. We don't want to wait for somebody else to decide on that. And I was thinking in the middle of the night, I think probably the conversation I had had with Sandy kept playing on my mind. And I was half awake, and then I'd wake up, and I was going through this, and I thought I'd share with you the process that I went through to make the change. It's not an easy one. It's not an easy thing to change. So let's look here for a moment. We're talking here about the money frequency. Now, you could think that the money frequency is something that's hidden somewhere, and only the lucky people find it. And of course, that's not the case. Anyone can connect with the money frequency, and you do it inside yourself. As you alter your own consciousness, as you alter your own perception of life, as you alter the way you see things and take control, you can connect with the money frequency. When you do, it's like Napoleon Hill pointed out in his book. He said, when money starts coming, it'll come so fast and furious, you're going to wonder where it was hiding through all those lean years. And that is because you've connected with the laws of the universe. Now, when Ray gave me this book, and he said, if you will read this every day and do exactly as I tell you. I had never done what anybody told me up to that point in my life. I was 26, and I was going to just do everything my way, but my way wasn't working. In fact, my way was not working at all. I was in bad shape. I was broke. I was unhappy. I was sick. I mean, I just couldn't make it happen. And when Ray put this R down and started to talk to me about it, he spoke with such absolute conviction that I think he twisted something in my head and got me to look at life a little different. And then he asked me, he said, do you ever read anything? And I said, no. And he asked me about what my income was. And I told him it was $4,000 a year. But I owed $6,000. And that's when he asked me, do you ever read anything? And I told him I couldn't read. Now, that was just my way of saying that I don't read, because I could read. There's a lot of people that can't read. The ones that don't are no better off than the ones that can't. I learned that. And he said, start reading this book. Just open it anywhere and read it. Read it from the front to the back. Get the whole drift of what he's talking about. And never put it down. Just keep reading it. You see, there's so much wisdom in this book. It's the essence of Napoleon Hill studying and interviewing over 500 of the world's most successful individuals. So I started to read it. And, of course, everything started to change. Now, I had written a goal card that I wanted to earn $25,000. If you have a goal, write it on a card, put it in your pocket. Every time you touch the card, you trigger it in your mind. I had no idea how I was going to make it. Do you know that that was the right thing to do, though? When you don't know how to make it, write it on a card. You have no idea how you're going to do it. I didn't. He said, never mind. He said, things will happen. Well, things started to happen. I was reading this card, and what it actually did, it caused me to start to think of earning money. Rosh pointed out something yesterday. He pointed out that he was always looking at his present results. And his present results just weren't making it. I got him to look at the results he wanted, not the results he was getting. Now, you may be looking at your present results and letting that control you. It's the wrong thing to do. Look at the results you want. Well, at any rate, now think of this. At the end of the first year of me working with him, I was earning $175,000 a year. I mean, the change was so incredible, and I had no idea of how I did it. In under 5 years, it was over $1 million. We had offices in a number of different cities, and we opened one in England. And we did it in England because I always wanted to go and live in England. I don't know why, but I did live there for a year. Now, it was one day, I was earning all this money, and I would go down to the Playboy Club. I mentioned this before. It was on Park Lane, right beside the London Hilton. And I'd go into Playboy and I'd play roulette. And you know, I won a lot more often than I lost. And I think it was because I was expecting to. But at any rate, one day I come out and I was walking away from the Playboy Club, and something happened inside of me. And I started to think that I was being totally irresponsible. Now, I wasn't very old. I was probably 27, maybe 28, 30, something like that. And it wouldn't leave my mind. And then I started to think, how did I change? How did my life change so much? Because 4 or 5 years is a relatively short period of time when you're moving at a pretty fast clip. And I'm thinking, what happened? I know I'm not that smart. I didn't think I was very smart. But yet I had offices in Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Cleveland, Atlanta, and London. And I had money coming in from all these cities. And I couldn't figure it out. I made up my mind then that I was going to figure out what the hell happened to Bob. And because that's what I wanted to figure out, that's the answer I got. Now look here for a moment. I want you to listen really carefully to this.
I'd like to tell you about the strangest secret in the world. Some years ago, the late Nobel Prize-winning Dr. Albert Schweitzer was being interviewed in London, and a reporter asked him, "Doctor, what's wrong with men today?" And the great doctor was silent a moment, and then he said, "Men simply don't think." It's about this that I want to talk with you. We live today in a golden age. This is an era that man has looked forward to, dreamed of, and worked toward for thousands of years. But since it's here, we pretty well take it for granted. We in America are particularly fortunate to live in the richest land that ever existed on the face of the earth, a land of abundant opportunity for everyone. But do you know what happens? Well, let's take 100 men who start even at the age of 25. Do you have any idea what will happen to those men by the time they're 65? These 100 men who all start even at the age of 25 believe they're going to be successful. If you ask any one of these men if he wanted to be a success, he'd tell you he did. And you'd notice that he was eager toward life, that there was a certain sparkle to his eye, an erectness to his carriage, and life seemed like a pretty interesting adventure to him. But by the time they're 65, 1 will be rich. 4 will be financially independent. 5 will still be working. 54 will be broke. Now think a moment. Out of the 100, only 5 make the grade. Now why do so many fail? What has happened to the sparkle that was there when they were 25? What's become of the dreams, the hopes, the plans? And why is there such a large disparity between what these men intended to do and what they actually accomplished? When we say about 5% achieve success, we have to define success. And here's the best definition I've ever been able to find. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal.
Now that's something you want to burn into your mind. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. You could be a student in school with a C and D average, and you're working toward an A and B, and you're progressively moving in that direction. You're a successful person. You could be a person that has an estate of maybe 5 million, and you're working towards 10 million. And you're progressively moving in that direction. That's a successful person. Each one as successful as the other. It has nothing to do with the end. It has to do with the direction we're moving in. Well, I was listening to this recording. Here I am. I'm trying to figure out what happened. Why did Bob change? And I couldn't figure it out. I was listening to this every day. Every day I'd listen to this recording. I had a number of them. And I was playing these recordings all the time. And I couldn't figure out what was happening. Now I want you to look at this for a moment. There's 3 income earning strategies. We call it money 1, money 2, and money 3. Now, if you're going to teach this to your children, you want to make sure that you teach them number 3, because the only one that really works. Unfortunately, 96% of the population follow M1. This is where people trade their time for money. Now, I don't care how much you're charging for your time. If you're working on that concept, there's a problem. It's called saturation. You run out of time. That's where 96% of the population work. That's where I was working when I changed. M2 is a good strategy. It's only used by 3% of the population, and for very good reason. This is where people invest money to earn money, and not too many have any to invest. M3 is something I stumbled on, and I didn't understand it. I didn't know I had. It's only used by 1% of the population, but they earn 96% of all the money. Now, these people multiply their time by setting up multiple sources of income. Now, I was doing this, but I didn't know what I was doing. I was unaware of what happened inside of me. Now look here for a moment. Our world is changing. It's changing at a very rapid clip. Most people don't understand what's going on. Right now, you know the world is in a chaotic state. But out of all chaos comes order. And it'll be a higher degree of order than that which existed prior to the chaos. But our world is changing. It's not getting bigger. Our world is getting smaller. It's actually shrinking. We're only hours away from anywhere in the world now. You can have business in multiple locations today. Now, I was doing this back in 1961, 65. And I was in harmony with the money frequency, but I didn't know that I was. And I was setting up sources of income. I had money coming to me from different places. I was earning money 24 hours a day. I was earning money while I was sleeping. And you know something? Anyone can do this. I didn't even understand what I was doing. This is what we call multiple sources of income. Let me give you an idea of just how crazy my behavior was, and yet it was producing. My brother had just come to work with me, and one day I said, why don't we get down to Atlanta and open an office? He's okay. We got on a plane. I took out a pad that I had, and I started to write down things that we had to do when we got to Atlanta. Things come to you even though you don't understand what's going on. An idea came into my mind when I got off the plane in Atlanta. I went immediately to a telephone, and I phoned a real estate office. Person answered the phone, asked him what his name was, asked him what he did. He said he's an agent there. And I said, listen, I just got in, I'm in the airport. Introduced myself, and I said, would you spend the whole day with me tomorrow if I rented an office, a 5,000 square foot office, on a long lease from you? What did you just say? I said, if I rented a 5,000 square foot office from you tomorrow, will you spend a day with me? Well, he said, I suppose I would. He said, what do you want me to do in that day? I said, I just want you to drive me around. I don't know my way around. And I had a whole list of things I had to do. We rented the office. We got the furniture. We got the phone. We enrolled in the Better Business Bureau. Everything that you had to do. We put an ad in the paper for help. You know, 2 weeks later, we flew back into it. Now, we flew in at 5 o'clock at night. That's when I phoned the agent. We flew out the next night at 5 o'clock. That office was all set up. Everything was done. 2 weeks later, we had a team of people in that office working. Thought nothing of that. That was just our way of working. And as we did this, we kept setting sources of income. Now, some of these grew big, and some of them didn't. But they all had one thing in common. The money from each source flew into our bank. Didn't matter what country it was, the money flowed in. Now, I was doing this, and I wasn't even aware of what I was doing. I should back up for a minute. I sat down one day with someone much wiser than myself and asked me what I was doing. I said, I'm not quite sure. I said, everything's really great, but I don't know what the hell I'm doing. See, I had no business experience. I wasn't running it like a business. I was just doing it. And he sat down and he explained everything. That's when he explained the M1, M2, M3. And he showed me how I was using this M1 method. Creating. Well, when I became aware of what I was doing, all I wanted to do was teach this to other people. tomorrow, we're going to have a lady that is doing extremely well. She's one of the people that we've taught to do what we do. She's become very wealthy in a short period of time. On Friday, I'm going to introduce you to another woman who's done extraordinarily well following this. Now, they're doing that because they're doing exactly what we tell them. You see, when you've got a system that really works, just keep duplicating it. And that's what we were doing. We had taken the essence of this book and began to apply it. Here I am. I'm 87 years old, and I'm still reading this book every day. Why? Because I know that I can do a lot better than I'm doing. Now, not only am I doing well, the good thing about this, I have attracted phenomenal people to us. 15 years ago, when Sandy Gallagher joined our company, she changed our company like night and day. She had tremendous experience in business. A securities attorney. I was shocked when she quit the law firm to come with us full time. Well, I was struggling with all this. Now I want to back up a bit. I want to explain when this first started to change. I've already explained I had no formal education. A couple of months high school. I had no business experience. I was always working at dumb jobs. Working in gas stations, changing tires, lubricating cars, oil, and changing the oil. Always working at real low-paying jobs and working very, very hard. One day I saw an ad in the newspaper that a township, which is part of Toronto, was going to hire firefighters. Now, I knew that I wouldn't qualify to get in there. I own no formal education. That was one thing that stopped me. I was really skinny. I was underweight. I had no business experience. I didn't even have good referrals. But there was a magistrate lived 2 doors up from my mother. That would be like a judge. And I went up and knocked on his door, and I said, Mr. Lynn, you don't know me, but my mother lives about 3 doors down from you. And I said, they're advertising for firefighters here in East York. And I was wondering if there's anything you could do to help me. Now, this is the wildest thing. I think the man was impressed that I had asked him. Well, he says, come on in, son, sit down. So I stepped inside and I sat down on the sofa, and he started to ask me questions. And I said, well, just a second. He picked up the phone and he phoned the mayor. It was actually a Reeve, Bill Allen. And he said, Bill, I got a friend of mine over here who'd like you on the fire department. I understand you're hiring people. Like that, I was on the fire department. I was underweight. Had to go to the town offices to the doctor there. And the doctor was, I don't know, a very old guy. He was sitting there and he was checking me over. And he's go over and stand on those scales. So I go over and stand on this weight machine. And I'm about 135 pounds. He said, what do you weigh? I said, 165. And he looked at me sort of funny, and he said, well, we'll leave it at that then. And here I was on the fire department. Now look, I was working 6 days a week in a gas station. 3 weeks out of the month. 1 week out of the month, I was working 7 days a week. And I was working hard for next to nothing. When I got on the fire department, I was working 7 days and 7 nights a month. When we were on the night shift, the first thing we would do is make our bed. We all had a bed. We'd draw our sheets and we'd make our bed. Then we'd go to the kitchen maybe and make a cup of coffee, make something to eat. Then we may go and sit and watch television for a while or go play cards and go play darts. And that's what we did. We very rarely had a fire. I was virtually retired. My income doubled when I went on that job. I was there for 4 or 5 years. No one ever quit that job, and they couldn't fire you. Here I was, I get into this book. I'm reading it in the fire hall, and people are laughing at me. Oh, Proctor's going to get rich, you know. Then I decided I was going to quit and clean floors. Everyone thought I was right out of my mind. But you see, I had an image of doing something much bigger than cleaning floors. The image I had was where my business was a couple of years later. Here I was out washing these floors, collecting money each month. I was building a business. See, I had an image in my mind of building this company. Everybody thought I was crazy. I had quit this job. I thought, no, I'm going to have money coming in from all over the world. I was totally into what Hill was talking about. Now, my results would indicate that I wasn't studying anything because I only had a couple of offices. I had Canada Starch, that's a company, was on Comstock Road. I washed their floor twice a month. I got $15 a time for watching it. Then I think I mentioned yesterday Kirby's Construction on Wick State, 65 a month. Now I'm up to 95. Then I would get another one. In the daytime, I'm out knocking on doors, selling people on the idea, let me clean their floors. And it was building up, but it was building up slowly. The people in the fire department, they actually thought I was crazy. The chief called me into his office 2 or 3 times. Said, Bob, are you sure you know what you're doing? I said, I know what I'm doing, Chief. I didn't know what I was doing. I was scared. I was really scared. But you see, I was in a position that was not a good position. I was letting somebody else dictate what I was going to do with my life. Now, it wasn't until I met this man that I really understood what had happened in depth. And he taught me in such a way that I could teach it to others. Most people that are very successful cannot articulate on why they are. They don't know why they are. And therefore, it's non-transferable. They can't give it to anybody. I've been working at this all of my adult life. I know exactly why you're getting the results you're getting. And I know exactly what you have to do if you want to change those results. I tell people all the time, if you can tell me what you want, I'll show you how to get it. Now, I have trained a lot of people all over the world to do this, and they are doing it. Val Vanderwall, when he first met me, he started to teach this to me. He was fascinated with what I had done in the cleaning business. He said, Bob, I want to show you something. And I started to understand in depth and why I was doing what I was doing, why things were working the way they're working. Now, he was the first one to teach me the laws of compensation. I want you to listen to this, and I want you to look at it very carefully. I don't know what you're working at, but I do know this. There is no end to what you can earn. If I can earn millions of dollars, you can earn millions of dollars. I set a goal in 1973. I think I've already mentioned that to you. But I sat down and I wrote out that I would build a company that operates all over the world. In March of this year, Mikey, our Chief Operating Officer, who you met on the introduction, she phoned me and she said, Bob, I think you'd like to know we just went into every country in the world. Now, here I am learning the laws of compensation. You want to remember these. The law of compensation clearly states that the amount of money you earn will always be in an exact ratio to the need for what you do, your ability to do it, and the difficulty there is to replace you. Now, I want you to think of this. With respect to the work we do here at the Proctor Gallagher Institute, is there a need for what we do? Well, all over the world, people are lost. They're not quite sure of how to make things happen. They're not quite sure of how to start multiplying their income. They don't even believe they can, most of them. We know how to teach people how to do this. There's a phenomenal need for what we do everywhere. I was mentioning Kota Kinabalu. I was mentioning because it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. But I've worked all over the world. I've worked out through Asia, into Russia, all through North America, all over South America, throughout Europe. Everywhere you go, there's a need for what we do. Then it's our ability to do it. Well, I tell people that become consultants in our company, study this every day. Study it every day. You want to develop your ability to explain what we do. So clear and so simple, anybody will learn it. Then the difficulty there will be in replacing you. If you have really developed your ability to do something very well, you're going to be very difficult to replace. If you're difficult to replace, your stock goes up. Now, this is all part of finding the money frequency. It's all part of it. You see, what we're doing is we're bringing ourselves up. And when we do, everything goes up. What do we want to focus on? Just one part of it. The second part, your ability to do it. Develop your ability to help other people. If you're looking at what we're doing, you think, God, I would love to do what he's doing. That happened to me in 1966. I've already mentioned this to you, I know I have, but I was sitting in Earl Nightingale's office. Earl Nightingale was like God in my mind. Every time he spoke, there was such wisdom come out of the man. And I'm sitting in his office, and I was getting ready to leave, and I said, Earl, what's the big deal? I mean, what the heck is the secret here? He said, well, there isn't any secret, Bob. He said, it's a simple matter of sitting down and deciding what you really want to do and then dedicate your life to it. He said, everybody loves doing something. He said, figure out what it is you love doing and dedicate your life to it. At that moment, I hadn't even left the office. I started to get excited. I was getting so excited because I knew exactly what I wanted to do. He said, see, most people have no idea what they want to do. I knew exactly what I wanted to do what he was doing. And as I showed you, 5 years later, I was his vice president of sales. I did exactly what they told me. See, the trick is find somebody who's very good at what they're doing and then take direction from them. It's so simple. Now let's go back. We've gone through this once, but I want you to go through it again. I want you to clearly understand this. It's so important. See, the mind covers everything. It really does. You've got the mind is broken into two parts. You have the conscious, educated mind, and there's the emotional, universal mind. You know, the universal mind, it's everywhere. And there's the body. The body, of course, moves into action and produces results. Now, results are everything. Results tell the truth. You can sugarcoat all kinds of things, but results tell the truth. Now, we all owe a lot to a man named Dr. Thurman Fleet. So let's look at the mind and look at paradigms. Your mind and your paradigm. Now, I mentioned this before, but I'm going through it again because I want you to remember it. And it's the repetition that works. Thurman Fleet was very involved in the healing arts and holistic health. He stated the mind is an activity, it's not a thing. No one has ever seen the mind. No one has ever seen the mind. If a person has mental problems, how do you help them? You know, there's a page in The Science of Getting Rich, a great book. It's on page number 7. It's chapter 7. And on the first page, it's on gratitude. He said the entire process of adjustment and atonement can be summed up in one word: gratitude. If a person's having mental problems, if they would sit down and look at all they have to be grateful for, if a person's unhappy, if they just sit down and look at what they're grateful for. Now, you cannot see your mind, but you can see the results of the mind. In order to gain clarity and eliminate confusion, he said he was going to create a picture of the mind, and he did. And then he gave it to us, conscious, subconscious, and body. Now, I've pointed out many times this is the most valuable idea I've ever learned. Now, you've only heard me go through this twice. I'm doing it twice. There's something very big in here most people miss. Your conscious, your subconscious, and your body. Your conscious mind is your thinking mind. It's your educated mind. It's where your intellect is. The subconscious is your emotional mind. And you want to remember that. The subconscious is where your intellect is. Now, the conscious mind has the ability to originate. In other words, if there's something you don't like, you can reject it and you can go ahead and originate it. Now, in the emotional mind, it must accept everything you give to it. It has no ability to give it away. The subconscious mind must accept everything you give to it. It has no ability to reject. Now, I want you to think of this. The subconscious mind cannot differentiate between what's real and what's imagined. This is absolutely incredible that we understand this. When you get emotionally involved in an idea, your subconscious mind accepts that as real. That's what I had done. I got emotionally involved. Every time, it gets me every time I think of it. I got emotionally involved with the business, and I was acting like the person I wanted to become. I was acting as if the business was already built. That's exactly what they tell you to do in this book. Act like the person you want to become. Now let's look here. We said the conscious mind has the ability to accept or reject. I want you to think of all the nonsense that's coming to you through social media, from other people, through Netflix, and podcasts. This information is flowing into your conscious mind. Now, you have the ability to reject all of that information. You can just say, get out of here, and it'll go away. But you want to know what 90-some% of the population do? They don't reject it. Watch what they do. They leave their mind wide open because they're not thinking, and it goes directly into their subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind can't differentiate between what's real and what's imagined. So all kinds of bad news goes in there and puts you in a bad vibration. Why would a person do that? It's because of their paradigm. They're actually programmed to do it. That's where their program is operating. Now stay with me for a moment. Let's close the window on that. And let's take a look at a person when they're a baby. Here's a person as an infant. Their subconscious mind is wide open, so everything that's going on around that person is going right into their subconscious mind. You are a product of somebody else's way of thinking. You're a product of the past. Everything that's gone into your subconscious mind has become your program. Now, I want you to think of this. The paradigm controls us. You have to ask yourself, why? Why would we do it? Because other people are doing it. We already have the knowledge and the power to accomplish most anything we want. However, we have not developed a clear understanding of how paradigms are formed or how they control our habitual behavior. You see, people automatically move into action. Study anyone, and you'll find their behavior is habitual. Therefore, we frequently do not do what we already know how to do. We've got the knowledge of how to do the job better, but we're not doing it. Superior knowledge, inferior results, and that causes confusion and frustration. Now think, a person's absolutely brilliant. They may come out with a master's in business administration, all kinds of different degrees. But the results they're getting are terrible. Let's put our drawing up here and take a look at it from a different perspective. Here's the individual. They've got all this knowledge in their consciousness. They've passed the exams. They've got the degrees. But if you look at their results, you'd think they never went to school. You're wondering what's stopping these? Why are these people operating this way? Why are they getting those results? Well, they're getting the results because the knowledge is not controlling them. The paradigm is controlling them. Their own intellect isn't controlling them. Their paradigm is. That's too bad. And until they change the paradigm, get a new paradigm, they're not going to change the results. Now, this is rather sad, but this is the way most people live. Let the paradigm control their whole life. It's a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior. Now look at this. And almost all of our behavior is habitual. You're being controlled by a paradigm. So am I. What I did way back in 1961, I changed my paradigm. It had nothing to do with my level of intellect. I didn't have to have any great degrees. I could go out and I could build a business, and I did. It operated in a number of different cities and a number of different countries. I didn't have to have any degree to do that. I just had to have a picture of what I wanted to do in my mind, and if I could get the picture, then I'd go and do it. Well, you can do exactly the same thing. These higher faculties are so important you learn them. This is where Val Vanderwall really changed my life. You've got to ask yourself, how much do I know about each one of these higher faculties? Because this is what separates you from all of the rest of the animal kingdom. Do you know that all the little animals that are running around are completely at home in their environment? Completely at home in their environment. You and I are totally disoriented in our environment. Now think. That's because we've been given the ability to create our own environment. We're not doing it. We're not doing it. We're not developing these higher faculties. Now, that's rather sad. That's the way people live. They go by what they see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. They want to start using these higher faculties. It makes a lot of difference. Look here for a moment. There's the conscious mind. That's where our wants are. What do you really want? That is so important that you know exactly what you want. Then you want to take and impress your wants upon your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is universal intelligence. And when that want is impressed upon universal intelligence, it turns into a desire. Desire is the effort of the unexpressed possibility within, seeking expression without through your action. When you want something, if you keep thinking, keep getting emotionally involved, it turns into a desire. That is what's going to move this body into action. And that's what's going to cause you to get whatever it is you want. Your body is the instrument of the mind. And you're quite capable of getting anything you want. Now, I was thinking earlier that I would maybe have about 5 minutes, maybe 1 or 2 questions that I'd field. We're going to have total Q&A on Friday. But we're getting into stuff here, and I was thinking just as I was doing this,